Well, welcome back to team. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving week. Lots of family and food. Still got leftover turkey at home. Little football. By the way, what was that last night? How many of you guys watched the Bears game last night? What was that? I'm not used to watching a game like that. Get halfway through the second quarter, I'm like, really? 17 points already? Is this what it's like to really watch a real game? I didn't know how to respond. Anyway, so welcome back. Good to get going with team again. Here's our schedule. We have team today, obviously, next week, the 13th, and then also on the 20th. And then we'll take a break for Christmas. No team the week after, the Friday after Christmas, and then we'll start up again in January. But I have good news and bad news today as far as announcements. Good news is, many of you know a little bit about the journey that Willie Padilla has been on in his life here in the States. Willie is from the Philippines and has lived here for 17 years. All that time waiting with our complicated immigration process for his papers, for his green card. And finally, a couple of weeks ago, after 17 years, Willie got his green card. And so we can congratulate him and his wife on that. It's awesome. It's the first step. That's the first step toward citizenship for him and his wife, and that's terrific. And it also allows him to travel, because had they traveled before, they wouldn't be able to get back into the country. So he's got a son who is married and went to seminary in the Philippines and is living there now, and a grandson that he's not seen. And so, but the good news is Willie's got his green card. Bad news is he's going to travel with his wife back to the Philippines to see his son and grandson for 6 weeks, which means the bad news is our coffee. And Willie did not check with me ahead of time before the whole green card thing, so coffee. So anyway, but that's why part of a few guys stepped up a couple weeks ago when he was gone and learned the basic process there. And we have somebody committed to doing it. But those guys who helped out with that know that starting next week for about 4 or 5 team sessions until January, late January, we're going to need that help. So if you helped out in there, we could use you starting next week. So come here a little early, help with the coffee. Anyway, so that's good news and bad news. And at the end of today, we are going to help with the tables. Usually we don't have to do that, but there's a lot of stuff going on at church. So at the end of today, I'll remind you we're going to roll tables off and put them on the carts like we used to. All right. Here's our story today. This is a new one. This is a debut team story that came from a team guy, and it's not a limerick or a pun. So, I know, I've heard. A prairie-hardened farmer from Texas lived to be 99 years old. Before he died, his great-granddaughter asked him the secret of a long life. And he told her with a wink that he learned the secret from his grandmother, that if she wanted to live a long life, the secret was to sprinkle a pinch of gunpowder on her oatmeal every morning. His great-granddaughter took his advice to heart, literally, and she sprinkled a pinch of gunpowder on her oatmeal religiously her whole life and lived to the age of 103. She left behind 14 children, 30 grandchildren, 21 great-grandchildren, 5 great-great-grandchildren, and a 40-foot hole where the crematorium used to be. So better than a pun or a limerick. Okay. We're in session 11. Our theme today is called "What Me Worry," the influence of kingdom priorities. And the movie clip I want to show you comes from kind of a strange, disturbing movie. And I don't know what made me think about it because I'd never seen it, but I went back and looked at a couple scenes. But the movie is called Falling Down, a strange little movie with Michael Douglas as the key character. And it's really a movie that's about a man who's slipping into mental illness, and it turns into real weirdness and all that later on. But the opening scene is just, it starts with the frustration of an everyday traffic jam. And it leads into our topic today of stress and worry. So take a look at this clip.
I know that. Here, give me the phone.
think you're going? Going home. Hey! Hey!
Okay, that's the beginning of the movie, and from there it really unravels after that. But just watching that, you can kind of feel your internal stress level going up as it's filmed, and you feel the frustration and the stress and all that. Our theme this year, as you know, is Be Salty, Becoming Men of Spiritual Influence. And the last three sessions, if we can take you back just really quickly, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus talked about prayer, which was teaching us about our relationship with God. All prayer is personal. And then he talked about forgiveness, the role that plays in our lives. Forgiveness is always a gift. It's both a decision and a process, and it really is the thing that sets the forgiver free. And then last week, he talked about generosity, which begins with understanding true treasure, not earthly treasures, where we focus so much time and energy, but spiritual treasures. And all that leads into the topic we're looking at today. So let me jump into Matthew 6. I'm going to read the whole passage, and we'll break it apart a little bit. Beginning in verse 25. This is Jesus teaching. He says, "Therefore, I tell you, do not worry." Let me pause there. The word he uses there, worry, means to be anxious about something, or literally it means to be pulled apart, to be torn in two. So it's a strong word. Do not worry about your life, what you eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Remember what Jesus said last time, 2 weeks ago, about storing up treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy? All right? Is not life more than food, the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Okay, so at first we read this, and even I read this, and I think, what does he mean, don't worry? I mean, how can you not worry? There's so many things to be concerned about and to worry about. And I want to be clear about a couple of things. Jesus is not talking here about what we might call clinical anxiety or disorder. That's a mental health issue, and interestingly, the U.S. now is sort of the anxiety capital of the world. More people have a clinical anxiety issue in our country than anywhere else in the world. It makes no sense because of our affluence, but it's true. He's also not saying, so he's not talking about a mental health issue. He's also not saying, don't worry, be happy. Or Hakuna Matata, don't go to work, just kind of let God do everything, don't worry. No, he's not talking about that. He's not talking about not caring or not having responsibilities or not planning diligently. We should be concerned about some things. We should be responsible for some things. So he's not talking about that. Here's what I think he's saying. He's talking about worrying too much about lesser things. Worrying too much about the wrong things. He's talking about unhealthy, self-imposed worry that comes when we're consumed with lesser treasures, lesser priorities. Now let me try to explain. We're going to talk about two things today, the cause of worry and then the cure for worry. First, the cause of worry. So I teased you a little bit in my email. If you read my emails, I told you I had a confession to make, that I almost set our kitchen on fire. Well, I want to tell you the story because I think it relates to what we're talking about today. My wife is traveling right now. She's on the other side of the world. She was in Singapore for a week. She traveled yesterday to Kuala Lumpur. There's a long story behind it. She's traveling with her 90-year-old father. My oldest son is over there traveling the world, so they've met over there. My wife grew up in that part of the world. Her parents were missionaries and so forth, so she's making a trip with her dad. So she left last Friday, a week ago today. Day after Thanksgiving, she left for 2 weeks. So I'm bachelor for 2 weeks. So the very next day, Saturday, I made popcorn because the son that lives with us right now is in grad school. That son and I planned on watching a movie last Saturday night on Netflix. We've been looking forward to this, planning it for when Mom left, because this is not something she would want to watch, but we watched The Irishman. 3.5 glorious hours of De Niro, Pacino, Pesci, and no mom, no wife at home to judge us for what we were watching. So, so we had a blast. But anyway, so I was going to make popcorn for the movie. And it's not unusual. I make the popcorn at our house and make it the old-fashioned way. You know, use the oil and pop it in the pot and all that. And so I did what I usually do. Popped it up and it worked fine. We had a great night eating popcorn. But here's where the plot sort of thickens. Because I'm in charge of the kitchen now, and because I'm a guy, I didn't wash that pot out that night that I made the popcorn in, you know, with the grease and the salt, because I'd salted it in the pot and all that. I just left it on the stove because I thought, we're probably going to have popcorn again, and it makes no sense to waste all that energy. Right? Am I right? It makes no sense to wash that out if I'm just going to use it again. So I left it there. So the next day is Sunday, and Sunday night football comes on. So we say, hey, how about some popcorn? The pot's all ready. So I did the same thing, decided to make popcorn again to watch Sunday night football. So I just used that pot already, and I was proud of myself that I had the foresight to just leave it there. So I poured in the oil, and I put the 2 kernels in, so as it heats up, I can hear when they pop to put the rest of the kernels in, right? That's how you make it. So I'm waiting, and I never hear those kernels pop. I'm like, that's odd. It's taking a long time to heat up. I wonder what the deal is. So I finally walked over, and I lifted the lid, and smoke comes billowing out of the hot oil, and then in like 2 seconds, it just bursts into flames, the pot. I'm holding this pot, and it's flaming like that. The flames are shooting up like 2 feet out of it. It's on fire, and I can't think clearly enough to just put it back down, turn off the fire, and put the lid on it, which would suffocate the fire. So I'm running around the kitchen, holding this pot that's on fire, yelling at my son, open the back door, open the back door. And he opens the screen door. I run out the back, and I put it on our back deck on a metal table, and then it's still burning, and so I run in, and I know I'm supposed to put something on it. I can't remember what it is. What is it? Flour. It's flour. Got to be flour. It should have been baking soda. But I got the flour, and I'm throwing flour on this pot. Finally, I smother this flame, okay? And I have no idea what happened. And I'm confused. So that's outside. So I'll go back inside. I don't know what's going on. So I thought, oh, okay, I'm just going to get another pot. We still needed the popcorn, so I took another pot. and did it my usual, and it popped up perfectly fine. No fire, no nothing. So now I'm confused. We watched the movie, and later I'm going, I got to find out what happened. I got to know what happened. And so I started looking up, and the only variable I could think of was that the residue left in that pot included salt. I wonder, is there any way that does salt play any role in this? I'm not a chemist, I'm not a scientist, I'm trying to figure this out. So I look up online, and so here's my hypothesis. I did find some information. I think what happened was, and some of you can help me if you understand this sort of things, I think the little bit of salt residue in the pot left over from the day before, because I didn't clean it out, was enough to lower what's called the smoke point of the oil to where it heated up faster than usual because of the salt presence. And then when I opened the lid, the oxygen rushed in and caused this sort of spontaneous combustion. Okay, so my confession is I completely destroyed one of my wife's pots. It's completely burned. I mean, I scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. I really don't want to tell her that I almost burned the kitchen down, but the pot's there. And so you're all sworn to secrecy, but she's going to find out. So I'm going to tell her when she gets back, eventually, someday. She probably smell it from Singapore. Yeah. But here's the point. The root cause of that, that's a long story for this little takeaway. The root cause of my stress and worry was what? Me. Now, in my defense, I'm not a chemist. I could not have known that was going to be the reaction. But if, in fact, I had cleaned it out ahead of time and done, it wouldn't have happened, most likely. So my laziness that was pretending to be intelligence makes me the cause of my own stress and panic. And I think that's kind of what Jesus is talking about here. When he says, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, the body more than clothes? He's saying, don't create your own stress by worrying about lesser things. For example, let's think about some of the main causes of worry in our lives. And this is just me taking what Jesus said and thinking about how does that translate. First, let's think about the cause of worry called money. Money. It's easy to worry about money. Our whole culture teaches us to worry about money. Got to have more. Got to protect it. Got to invest it right. Got to find more. Got to have enough. Most of us know what it is to worry about money. But much of that worry we kind of create for ourselves. I saw the statistics just this week. The average credit card debt of American families right now is around $16,000. Student loan debt upon graduation, according to the U.S. Department of Education, is averaging about $30,000 right now. Okay, this is stress. Debt creates stress. It creates worry. It's worry that we cause for ourselves, which is partly why Jesus warned us about money. He said you can't serve both God and money. Money makes a lousy master. It makes a lousy God. But we can also worry about money when we have plenty. I knew a guy once years ago who was a multimillionaire. He lived his life terrified that he was going to outlive his money. He talked about it all the time. He had millions. Another cause of worry, food, body, clothing. Jesus talks about food, body, clothing. My youngest son is a senior at Indiana Wesleyan University in Marion, Indiana, and I go down there a lot to watch basketball games. But the last time I was there, I was curious. We stay at my wife's cousin's house, which is like 3 miles from the university. And as we drove to the university to watch a game, I counted the restaurants on this 3-mile stretch of main drag through Marion, Indiana, which is a dying old industrial town in Indiana. And I counted 36 restaurants on that one strip of road. Most of them of the Taco Bell, McDonald's, and Pizza Hut variety. And I remember thinking to myself, how in the world do all those restaurants stay in business? Think about Randall Road. I haven't counted them on Randall Road, but I'm going to do it sometime. From here to where I live in Batavia, how many restaurants are on Randall Road? Maybe slightly different options, but the same thing. How do they all stay in business? Food. Our culture is consumed with food, right? On the other hand, every other TV infomercial is about a weight loss plan or an exercise machine. My brother has in his basement now one of these Peloton things, right, that you ride and you watch and all that. There's things that you put in your mirror. So we're selling these things all the time. So which is it? As a culture, we overeat and we worry about our weight, right? We're obsessed with our bodies, with our health, with fashion, with our appearance, with staying young. I think that's what Jesus is talking about. He says, can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? Another cause of worry, work. Now, work is good. We've talked about this a million times at Team. We're created by God to work, but an overemphasis on work, working too much, not being able to lay work aside, being consumed by work, finding our identity in work, creates what Jesus calls worry. Another cause of worry is what might be called hurry sickness. Hurry sickness, what I heard someone describe it as, or speed of life. You know, hurrying when you don't need to hurry. Hurrying because it's a habit. Have you ever done this? You're driving somewhere in the Tri-Cities and you come to the train tracks. You get caught by a commuter train or by, heaven forbid, one of those big, giant, long trains, right? And you're in your car there and you pull out a line, drive back and take the long way around, even though you know it's going to take you longer, but you just rather be moving than sitting still. Maybe I'm the only one that does that, but I've done that. And as I'm doing it, I think, what am I doing? I just don't like sitting still. I'd rather be going. hurry sickness. Or you're in the checkout line of the grocery store and you're in the express line, which I'm always in the express line because I'm never getting more than a few things. And I'm counting the items in the guy in front of me. 15 items, it says, because I'm in a hurry. I'm habitually in a hurry. That's just how we live. A couple years ago, I saw a church that advertised one of their services as an express worship service. No, I'm serious. Guaranteed 45 minutes or less and you're out of there. Some of you are thinking, See, our culture considers busyness a badge of honor. I had a friend years ago who every time I say, hey man, how you doing? He'd go, oh man, it's been crazy. He'd say literally the same thing every time. Oh, it's been kind of crazy lately. I wanted to say, you keep saying that. Is that really any way to live? See, the result is when we live that way, our relationships, the most important things, our treasures, are starved by the velocity of our lives. Or in younger people, for example. Some of you have kids that are of this age, but younger people, teenagers, early 20s or something. A big cause of worry is what I just call TMI. Too much information overload, social media, for example. Our kids now are exposed to way more information than they should ever be exposed to. Good, bad, ugly, everything. But on social media, what they do is they see all these lives, all these postings of these cool experiences, beautiful people, perfect lives, and they compare themselves to what they see in social media. And the result is worry, anxiety. I'm not measuring up. My life's not good enough. I'm not good enough. All these causes for worry begin with caring too much about lesser things. Jesus is saying that worry comes from misplaced priorities. And misplaced priorities are really the result of misplaced faith. See, we all have something at the top of our motivational food chain in our lives. We all have something that drives the rest of our priorities, our decisions, and our behavior. If it's success or the appearance of success, then we're sitting ducks for worry. If it's materialism or covetousness, which is an old-fashioned word for wanting more, needing more, the result, Jesus says, is worry. If it's being attractive or popular for young people, then the result is worry. Jesus says there's another way to live. There's another thing or power to put at the top of your motivational food chain. And that's where we get into, secondly, the cure for worry. I'm the oldest son in my family growing up, and so I was the first one to go away from college. And so I remember, because I was the first one to go away, I didn't know what that was about, didn't know what it was like, and I was nervous about it. What was it going to be like to be away from home? Could I handle the academics? I was a pretty lazy student. Would I have friends? Could I make the basketball team? I was going to try to go out for basketball. And I was in my bedroom a couple of weeks before leaving home to go to school. And I just sitting there in my room, and I think I was thinking about these things and worrying. And my dad came in, and he sensed in his wise way what was going on. And so he sat down on the end of my bed and he said, worried about going to school? I kind of nodded. And he said, well, just want you to know I envy you. I'm like, I didn't say anything, but I'm like, what? He said, I'm scared to death. What do you mean envy me? And he said, I envy you because of all the fun you're going to have in the next 4 years and all you're going to learn in the next 4 years. And that simple little conversation changed my perspective. It changed how I was thinking about that next season of my life. And that's, I think, what Jesus is trying to do. Let me read these verses again and listen to the change in perspective he's trying to give. Verse 28, and why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin, yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and gone tomorrow, thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So here's my summary for takeaway. What he's saying about is care about the right things, care about the things God cares about. What has he been talking about in the Sermon on the Mount? Prayer, forgiveness, spiritual treasures, Care about the right things, and you will worry less. Do the right things, and you will worry less. Know who God is and what he's like, and you will worry less. So who is God? He says he's your heavenly Father who knows you, who cares for you, who knows what you need, who provides for you, and you can go to him. I didn't put these verses in your book. I should have. In 1 Peter 5:7 in the New Testament, he writes, cast all your anxiety, cares, worries on him because he cares for you. It's one of the functions of prayer. Paul in Philippians chapter 4 says, don't be anxious, same word, don't be anxious or worried about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. In other words, tell him, give him your cares. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So he's saying that peace and joy are not found in superficial things, are not found in external things, in material things. They're found in focusing our lives, our hearts, our minds on kingdom priorities, on God's priorities. So he says in verse 33, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be given to you as well. Just this week, I had a conversation with a man. I think he told me he was 75 or 76 years old, who told me he had been diagnosed just 4 weeks ago with a rare form of leukemia. So rare, it had only been seen twice at the major hospital he was going to. And the prognosis is not good. It's experimental treatment. He said he might have a month, he might have a week, he might have several years, doesn't know. And then he said to me, but I want you to know these last 4 weeks since my diagnosis have been, this is his words now, have been the happiest 4 weeks of my life. I was kind of stunned. And then he told me why. He said, because in those 4 weeks, the love of my family I had never known at that level before. He said, the presence of God in my life I'd never known to that degree before. And then he ended by saying, and you know what? He said, I'm not worried, he said. The week we were going to teach on this, he said, I'm not worried. He had a lot of reasons to be worried. I'm not worried. I think that's what Jesus is talking about. When our hearts and minds are focused on the right things, on what God cares about, what God wants to give us, we worry less. He just says, don't worry about lesser things. Here's 3 questions I want you to deal with. There's only 2 in your booklet, but I'm going to add 1 right in the middle. First question is, what are the 3 biggest causes of stress or worry in your life right now? Just think about it. What are the 3 biggest causes of stress and worry in your life right now? Secondly, here's the added question. How do you personally deal with stress? We all have a way, right? Do you exercise? Do you eat? Do you pray? What do you do? Personally, what's your style? What do you do? How do you deal with stress? Thirdly, then, which was number 2 on your list, which of the stresses you mentioned will be significant in the last week of your life? Change your perspective. Talk about that. Get some coffee. Talk about your questions. We'll wrap you up like usual at about 6:52.